enough fiber on a daily basis, and most people only get around half of the daily recommended intake. So today we're going to learn, why does fiber matter, how it works, and how to add more into your diet. We're going to start off by testing your fiber knowledge. You can go ahead and leave your answers in the chat, but our question is, how many grams of fiber should we eat in a day? And just to give a little hint, if you picture yourself eating a sandwich with whole grain bread, one slice of that whole grain bread would have 2 grams of fiber. So you guys can go ahead and take a look and pick your guess. I'll give you all a minute to do that. See some good answers in there. If y'all said 25 to 30 grams, then you would be correct. That is how many grams of fiber we should be aiming to eat in a day. So digging a little deeper into what is fiber. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate that our body cannot digest. And even though it does provide energy, or it doesn't provide energy, it has so many benefits for our health. For example, soluble fiber can dissolve in water and it forms a gel-like substance into the digestive tract. Soluble fiber's role is to slow down our digestion and promote healthy gut bacteria, which is very beneficial for us. Insoluble fiber does not dissolve in water, and it passes through the digestive tract unchanged. Insoluble fiber's role is to add bulk to stool and promote regular bowel movements, and it also helps to prevent constipation. When we think of fiber, we might think of something like this broccoli or oatmeal that's pictured on this slide, but when you think of a piece of raw broccoli, it's crunchy, right? When you bite into it, it's that tough, structured part of the plant that our bodies just cannot break down, and that's fiber. It's also important to note that there's 2 other types of fiber: dietary fiber, which is just found naturally in food sources, and functional fiber, which is actually isolated or manufactured or can be synthesized into a lab and added into food. So now we're going to get into some different sources of fiber. We've got some sources of soluble fiber here on the left. As you can see, that includes some fruits, vegetables, oats, barley, wheat bran, legumes, flax seeds, and chia seeds. An important one that I want to point out is berries, because not only do berries have high amounts of soluble fiber, but they're also really high in antioxidants, which is also good for inflammation. So now looking over at insoluble fiber sources, you might notice that a lot of the sources of insoluble fiber are the same as soluble fiber. So some sources of insoluble fiber include vegetables, skins of fruit, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. Some foods might be higher in insoluble fiber, or some might be higher in soluble fiber, but most fiber sources contain both types. Both sources of fiber come from the same food, but it's the way that our body handles them is how they're digested differently. Soluble fiber dissolves in water and forms that gel-like substance, whereas insoluble fiber goes through the digestive tract unchanged. Now let's look a little bit more into, how does fiber get digested? Fiber is not digested the same way as other carbs. When we start chewing fiber, all that does is break it down into smaller pieces. But if we think of a more normal carbohydrate like white bread, if we were to chew that white bread, the digestion of the white bread actually starts in our mouth. Our enzymes in our saliva start to break down the white bread, but this is not the case for fiber. When we chew the fiber in our mouth, it breaks it into smaller pieces, and we swallow it, and it even passes through the stomach unchanged. Then, once the fiber gets to the small intestine, soluble fiber forms the gel-like substance, and insoluble fiber remains the same. Then it will move to the colon, also known as the large intestine, and this is where fermentation of fiber occurs. Fiber is fermented by the beneficial gut bacteria producing short-chain fatty acids. These short-chain fatty acids are really, really beneficial for our health because they nourish our colon cells and benefit our bodily functions. For example, they really benefit our blood sugar because they help our digestion slow down, which slows our glucose absorption into the blood. So how does fiber work in the body? Fiber plays a huge role in our satiety. which satiety is that satisfied feeling after eating when you've had enough to eat and you're just no longer hungry. So fiber promotes satiety because it expands in our stomach and it helps us to feel fuller for longer. It slows down our digestion, which also just helps that full feeling in our bodies. And most fibrous foods just take longer to physically chew and eat because I think back to the raw broccoli. It's crunchy and it's fibrous, so it takes us longer to chew it and digest it. And eating this way helps us feel fuller for longer as well. Fiber also plays a role in gut health. Fiber supports a healthy gut. It provides food for the good bacteria in our gut, allowing them to grow and be more diverse, which we know now that they produce those short chain fatty acids. And the short chain fatty acids are good for anti-inflammatory and immune boosting effects. Not only that, but fiber adds bulk to our stool and can help prevent constipation. Insoluble fiber retains water, which helps to soften stool and promote regular bowel movements. Let's dig into insoluble fiber and our digestive health. Fiber plays an important role in a healthy digestive system. Like we mentioned before, fiber adds bulk to stool and helps smooth the passing of food through our digestive tract. Fiber prevents constipation and speeds up the movement of food through our body. Now, if we think about what would happen if we didn't eat any insoluble fiber, our waste would move much slower and it would cause discomfort, bloating, and irregularity throughout our GI tract. So, what's the difference between soluble fiber and insoluble fiber digestion? Well, soluble fiber regulates the GI tract a little bit differently than insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber forms that gel-like substance that regulates consistency of stool, which in turn regulates constipation and diarrhea throughout our body. This is why intake of both soluble and insoluble fiber together is really important. Our soluble fiber also plays a huge role in feeding good bacteria and can ferment those good bacteria into short-chain fatty acids. Those short-chain fatty acids are really helpful for reducing inflammation, for our appetite control, for strengthening our intestinal lining, and they also support our immune system, which is a huge deal because having a healthy gut means that you'll have a strong immune system, which fiber is here to help with that. Not only that, but having a diet that is high in fiber also reduces your risk for developing other gastrointestinal diseases in the future, such as irritable bowel syndrome, diverticulitis, and even colon cancer. So as you already know, fiber has so many health benefits, like it can benefit heart health, blood sugar control, weight management, and cancer prevention. So now we're going to take a closer look at how fiber supports these areas. Let's talk about how fiber supports a heart-healthy diet. So soluble fiber helps to lower our bad cholesterol, also known as LDL cholesterol. It does this because it binds to bile acids in our digestive system and helps the cholesterol exit our body rather than it being deposited back into our bloodstream, which can cause buildup in our arteries and give us those plaques that we don't want in our heart. So with that being said, since it lowers our bad cholesterol, that also means that eating a high fiber diet can lower our risk of heart attack because our arteries are staying clear and healthy and our hearts don't have to work as hard, so the blood flows more freely. Not only that, but fiber can also regulate blood pressure. Eating high fiber foods gives us better blood vessel function and can also even excrete excess sodium from the body. Fiber also reduces inflammation, improves blood flow, and reduces blood clots, helping to prevent stroke. Adding fiber into your diet is a simple and natural way to keep your heart healthy. Fiber is not only helpful for your heart, but also for your blood sugar too. Fiber helps to reduce blood sugar spikes by slowing down our digestion after eating, and fiber also improves insulin sensitivity, which improved insulin sensitivity is a really good thing for our bodies because it means that our body needs less insulin to complete the things that it needed to do before needing more insulin. So fiber promotes the release of hormones that also respond to insulin. So soluble fiber slows the absorption of glucose into the blood after eating, which prevents blood sugar spikes. And without that blood sugar spike after eating, it is much easier to manage your blood sugar throughout the entire day. Soluble fiber also binds to glucose, which prevents the reabsorption of glucose into our bloodstream, which helps control and manage our blood sugar levels because it's not being released back into the body. Let's take a look at this chart. This shows what happens when you eat a food that's high in carbs but low in fiber, like this donut, or if you eat a food that's high in carbs but also high in fiber, like this apple. As you can see, immediately the donut causes a blood sugar spike, whereas the apple doesn't. The apple still has carbs, but the difference is the fiber. The apple has fiber, so it slows our digestion, making it a more gradual up and down instead of a rapid spike like the donut. Fiber supports weight management by increasing satiety, which in turn causes us to decrease our calorie intake because with that increased satiety, it means that we're just feeling fuller for longer, so you're not going to be hungry to eat more calories. High fiber foods also tend to have less calories and fats, which emphasizing those high fiber foods that have less calories and fats can also help support an appropriate calorie intake. High fiber foods are usually less calorie dense, but they cause increased fullness, which also contributes to that lesser calorie intake if you're trying to manage your weight. And high fiber foods are also plant-based and whole foods. So if you're replacing your processed snacks with high fiber foods, that can also help you with your weight management. So fiber and cancer prevention. Fiber is linked to a lower risk of colon cancer. Fiber helps support a healthy gut microbiome. It feeds our good bacteria, producing those short-chain fatty acids once again. And just a reminder, those short-chain fatty acids reduce inflammation, they strengthen our intestinal lining, and they regulate cell growth, which all of those are really important for lowering our risk for colon cancer. Fiber also promotes regular bowel movements, which prevent waste and carcinogens for staying in the body for too long. Fiber keeps things moving, so the less contact time in our body means there's less time for damage to occur to those cells. Like I just mentioned, fiber helps to keep blood sugar levels stable and improves insulin sensitivity, which can lower hormone-related cancer risks, such as breast or colon cancer. Studies have also shown that people who eat greater than 30 grams of fiber per day are at a lower risk for developing colorectal cancer. Let's get into some specific fiber intake recommendations. The general recommendation for consuming fiber is around 14 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories consumed, which is where we got that beginning statistic of 25 to 30 grams. It's just kind of an average debate based on how many calories the average American's eating. For men aged 19 to 50 years old, their fiber goal is to be eating around 28 to 34 grams of fiber per day. For women aged 19 to 50 years old, they should be eating 22 to 28 grams of fiber per day. Now, for men aged 51 plus, they should be eating 30 grams of fiber or more per day. And for women aged 51 plus, they should be eating 21 grams or more of fiber per day. Asking yourself, why does the fiber intake recommendation go lower as you get older? Wouldn't it be the opposite? But the reason for this, especially in women, is as we age, our calorie needs decrease, which in turn causes our fiber needs to also decrease, because when you're eating less calories, you'll need less fiber. It's also important to note that hormonal changes, especially in women as we age, slow down digestion, and eating too much fiber or having an increased fiber intake can be really hard on the body to pass. So that's why those fiber intake recommendations are lower as we get older. Now, once again, we're going to test your fiber knowledge. You can go ahead and leave your answers in the chat, but the question is, where is most of the fiber found in an apple? In the juice, in the skin, in the seeds, or in the flesh? We'll give you a minute just to answer those questions. I see a lot of correct answers in there. Y'all are good. Y'all have been listening. I'll give y'all another couple seconds to answer. If you said in the skin, then you would be correct. Okay, now I'm going to give you some easy and practical ways to increase your fiber intake, just some tips and tricks to make it easier to increase your fiber. So my first tip is to start your day with fiber. You can choose a whole grain cereal like Cheerios, shredded mini wheats, grape nuts, or kashi cereals. Or you could choose whole grain bread or bagels if you want to make toast. There's so many brands that offer whole grain options for bread, like Dave's Killer Bread, Nature's Own, Pepperidge Farms, and so many more. If you take a look around the grocery store, you're going to see so many whole grain options. Oatmeal's another fiber-packed breakfast option that is really easy to customize. You could add berries, cinnamon, honey, or all your favorite fruits like bananas or apples. Another tip is to just add vegetables to everything. It's so easy to add vegetables into pasta. You could add them into pasta sauces. You could add them into eggs as an omelet, or you could just make scrambled eggs with things like spinach, arugula, bell peppers, onions, really anything you like. Vegetables also can be added into soups or onto sandwiches really easily. You could add lettuce, avocados, any vegetable you want, or you could even just fix them as a side dish and enjoy them that way. My third tip is to always go for whole grains. Think about when you walk into Chipotle. One of the first questions they ask you is white or brown rice. If you're wanting to go get more extra fiber and you want those whole grains, it's so important to ask for brown rice. So that way it's just an easy swap you don't even have to think about, and you're automatically just adding more fiber into your diet. I also recommend at home you could try eating quinoa or barley. And when you're at the grocery store, looking for that whole grain label on grain products makes it so much easier. So you don't have to go searching. It just has it right on the packaging. Another tip, like the question we just asked, is to keep the skin on your fruits and vegetables because that is where most of the fiber lives. Next time you're eating a pear or an apple or a peach, just keep that skin on and get that extra packed full of fiber. Our last tip is to add beans or peas to anything you can. Beans and peas are so easy to add into salads, soups, or even tacos. We provided a little recipe that we're going to send in the chat for a Mediterranean dense bean salad, which is packed full with fiber and with flavor. It's a really good dish just to have like as a snack, or you could even prepare it as a side dish, but it's so high in fiber and it's so delicious. Now we're going to take a look at two diets. The diet on the left is an example of an average American diet of intake for an entire day. And on the right, we have one that's the same diet, but we made some swaps and added some things just to make it fiber packed. Let's take a look. Let's start on the left and go through what they're eating. So for breakfast, they had a bagel with cream cheese, giving around 2 grams of fiber for that meal. For lunch, they had a turkey sandwich with cheese on white bread and a bag of chips, giving about 3 grams of fiber for that meal. For dinner, they had spaghetti and meatballs with garlic bread, giving about 5 grams for that meal. For that entire day, they only had 10 grams of fiber. Like we just learned, that is less than the intake that we're needing for a day. 10 grams is not a lot of fiber. Now let's look at the other side, at the average American diet with fiber. As we can see, we swapped the regular bagel for a whole grain bagel, and we kept the cream cheese, but another high fiber option instead of cream cheese is to put peanut butter instead. We also had a banana with chia seeds that you could eat on the side or even make a bagel sandwich with if you wanted to. And this meal alone gives us around 10 grams of fiber, which is the same amount that they ate in the entire day for the diet on the left. For lunch, we kept our turkey sandwich, but we swapped our white bread for whole grain bread. And we added some fruits and vegetables like lettuce, tomato, avocado, and an apple for a side. We also kept the chips, but it's important to know that you don't just have to eat plain potato chips. If you're wanting a high fiber option, you can have sun chips or whole grain tortilla chips or even sweet potato chips, which would all offer higher fiber. For this meal, we had around 12 grams of fiber. Now, moving on to dinner, we had whole grain spaghetti, which another high fiber pasta option is chickpea pasta, which is available in almost every single grocery store with the regular pasta. We kept our meatballs, but we added spinach to the sauce, which is a super easy way to add fiber into your meal, but you can't really taste it. And as you know, spinach before, when you could put a ton of spinach in a dish and it shrinks up so small. So even if you chopped up the spinach before you put it in the sauce, if you don't like the texture, it would almost be undetectable. Then we also kept our garlic bread. There are some whole grain garlic bread options in the freezer section at stores like Walmart. You could get whole grain garlic bread baguettes. And we also added a side salad. All of this gives us around 14 grams of fiber for that one meal. Now let's look at this total. Around 36 grams of fiber for this entire day. That exceeds our recommendations. We're going above and beyond. And this just goes to show that fiber packing even one or two of your meals or snacks throughout the day can get you to your fiber goals with so much ease that you might have not even thought about before. So, how are we going to find that in foods? Let's break down what to look for when checking for fiber. We're always going to look at the food label and start with the serving size. Just remember that when you eat more or less of the serving size, you're also going to be changing how much fiber you get in your serving. So it's important to remember that. Next, we're going to go down to the total carbohydrate section and find dietary fiber. In this particular label, we have around 4 grams of fiber, which is awesome. It's good to aim to get at least 3 grams or more of fiber per serving. And if you find something that has 5 grams or more of fiber per serving, then that is an excellent source of fiber. Now I'm going to teach you about some common barriers to increasing fiber intake and their solutions. So you might have heard of this or even experienced it yourself, but if you increase your fiber intake too quickly, it can cause digestive discomfort. And because our bodies can't adjust to that quickly, it could cause bloating, stomach cramps, or even gas. But our solution to this is to increase your fiber intake slowly over a longer period of time rather than trying to go from consuming like 2 to 5 grams to 20 grams in one day. Our body just does not have time to adjust to that. So it's better to increase your fiber intake by 3 to 5 grams per day over several weeks, and that can help prevent your discomfort. Another tip we have for this barrier is to please make sure you're drinking enough water when you increase your fiber intake. The recommendation for drinking water is 8 cups of water per day. But it's important to note that when you're increasing your fiber intake, you might want to consider increasing your water intake as well, which can help with some of that digestive discomfort that you might experience when consuming increased amounts of fiber. Another common barrier is just the preference for refined grains, refined carbohydrates in America. When we think of refined grains, we might think of something like white bread, pasta that comes in a box, or white rice. And these are so accessible and they're so tasty. But during processing, these grains actually get stripped of their fiber content, leaving us with just what's left after they take out the fiber. So, our tip for this is to try out different whole grains that you can gradually incorporate or swap into your diet. And it's important to do this gradually, not only so your body can adjust, but so you can adjust to the taste as well. You don't want to switch all of your refined grains to whole grains all in one day because you might not know what you like yet. And this goes to say that refined carbohydrates do not have to be cut out of your diet completely, but it's just more important that you include those whole grains. You can still have refined grains, but the important part here is to include those whole grains as well. Another common barrier is having issues with food textures of fibrous foods like beans or certain vegetables. A solution to this is to try different ways of cooking them. You can blend fruits and vegetables into smoothies, so that way they don't really have a texture after that. Or you can roast or bake vegetables to make them more crunchier, or you could add beans or vegetables into soups or stews to make them softer. So it's worth a try. Try different ways to experiment just to increase your fiber intake. Just because you don't like something the first time doesn't mean you can't try it a different way. Now, I'm going to tell you some common myths about fiber and hopefully debunk them for you. The first myth is that you only need fiber if you're constipated. This is just not true. Fiber is not only about bathroom health. Fiber supports a gut microbiome. It lowers your cholesterol and can reduce disease risk, like your risk for diabetes or heart disease. So that one, not true. Second one is that fiber causes bloating, so it's bad for you. Like we just talked about, if you increase your fiber intake too quickly, it can cause bloating. But It's important to go slow and make sure you drink enough water so that way bloating doesn't occur when you're increasing your fiber intake. Our third myth is that only older adults need fiber, which is also just not true. Everybody needs fiber. Fiber is essential for our gut health, for weight management, and for overall wellness at any age. Kids need fiber, teens need fiber, adults need fiber, and older adults need fiber. But it's important to remember that everybody needs fiber no matter what age you're at. Another myth that you might have heard is that fiber supplements are just as good as food sources. And although fiber supplements can be helpful in some cases, whole foods also have vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, which most fiber supplements do not have any of those things. So it's important to remember that if you're considering buying a fiber supplement. A little bit more about fiber supplements. We're going to send an article in the chat that talks about the benefits of getting your fiber from whole foods rather than supplements. But in general, whole foods are better than fiber supplements because fiber supplements don't provide a variety of fiber. Most fiber supplements only have one singular type of fiber, which compared to whole foods where they have those vitamins or minerals or antioxidants and other nutrients that you can't get from those supplements, which fiber supplements could be helpful for you if they're recommended by a health professional. And if you don't consume enough fiber or you have certain health conditions like IBS, IBD, constipation, or diarrhea. But like I said, I recommend that you talk to your health professional first so that way you're not putting the wrong thing into your body. It's important to remember that whole foods also feed our gut bacteria, which helps to support digestion, reduce inflammation, and overall improve our immunity. With fiber, it's not all about numbers. It's also about sources. You could get the same amount of fiber from food as you could from a fiber supplement. On the left here, we have an example of a fiber supplement, the Ollie Fiber Gummy Rings, which provide us 5 grams of insoluble fiber per serving, which the serving is 2 gummies. This is about the equivalent of eating half an avocado. The difference is with the avocado, you're getting both types of fiber, insoluble and soluble, and you're also getting tons of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. This is not the only difference either. The price is also different. One container of those Ollie fiber gummies is around $20, whereas an entire avocado is about 80 cents. Let's break it down even further. One serving of those Ollie gummies, which is 2 gummies, comes out to about $1.25 per serving, whereas one serving of an avocado, where you get the same amount of fiber, but you get those vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, is only about 40 cents. And that's translated to all fruits and vegetables. You could buy a bag of apples for like $4 to $6, and you'd be getting so much more fiber and saving money. Now we've listed some maybe more fun sources of fiber. You might have seen these in the grocery store, and they might have unexpected amounts of fiber you may not realize. So looking in the top left, we have some Olipop prebiotic, probiotic kind of alternative soda brand. And what you may not know is that one can of these Olipops has 6 to 9 grams of fiber, which is so much fiber considering you don't even have to chew it. It's a drink. And most people's complaints with fibrous foods is that they're hard to eat, hard to chew, the texture. This doesn't have a texture. It's just a drink, which is amazing. And right below that, we have kind of a similar thing, which is Poppy. It's also a prebiotic, probiotic soda. And these cans usually have around 3 grams of soluble fiber in them, which is also amazing for something that you don't even have to chew. You might have seen these pre-made fruit and vegetable smoothies in the grocery store, and might even have seen this one that actually emphasizes fiber. This is a serving which is around 15 ounces, and you get 9 grams of fiber per serving with that. And once again, that's like a smoothie. And this translates also, you could make your own smoothies at home with fruits and vegetables. Like if you don't like the texture of certain fruits and vegetables, you can still get that fiber in that way. There's also brands of snacks and treats like Fiber One that promote fiber, and they're usually low calorie but high in fiber. For example, this Fiber One brownie is only 70 calories, but it has 5 grams of fiber. And if you compare that to a regular brownie, you're probably getting more than 70 calories and less than 1 gram of fiber. Our last unexpected source of fiber is popcorn. Did you know that 2 cups of popped popcorn has 4 grams of fiber? I think these are all so surprising and so amazing and a really good thing. So now we have provided a Thanksgiving recipe for a kind of healthier, fiber-packed stuffing. And no, I'm not trying to ruin your family's Thanksgiving by giving you this healthy stuffing recipe. That's not what I'm trying to do. But it does show you ways that you can incorporate fiber or try to make healthier changes this holiday. For example, this particular recipe adds quinoa, it adds mushrooms, and it adds celery, and it also uses whole grain bread. I'd like to just remind you that small changes are big wins, especially when it comes to fiber. So even if you only want to incorporate the celery, or if you want to do a mix of white bread and whole grain bread, that can still contribute so much to just making step towards increasing that fiber. Like I mentioned earlier, even just adding fiber into 1 or 2 of your snacks or meals can really help us reach our goals. So fiber benefits our digestive health. It benefits our heart health, our blood sugar control, our weight management, cancer prevention. It's linked to that lower risk of colon cancer. And I'd like to remind you again that small daily changes can mean big wins for our gut, our heart, and just our overall wellness. And if I haven't convinced you about consuming more fiber, in the chat, we provide a great resource on fiber. I encourage y'all to look at that. Please look at the other articles and read, try out the recipes. They're really good. And I'll open up if we have any more questions we can answer. If anyone has any questions.
Thanks for dropping those recipes. I'm gonna try the stuffing recipe.
Yeah.
It's not really that much different than how I make it already. Just adding a little bit of quinoa would give it a big boost of fiber.
Yeah.
For sure. I never thought about adding mushrooms either.
Yeah.
There is one question. What is the current recommendation for how much to cook foods to avoid breakdown of fiber? Like if you were to eat an apple, you'll eat the skin, but this person would rather cook and eat it like applesauce. But is there a benefit, or are you losing that fiber if you're cooking it?
I think if you keep the skin, the fiber content should remain pretty much the same, but the problem usually lies when you're not eating the skin or you're just peeling it and just eating the inside part. Not to say there's no fiber in the inside part, but most of it just lives in the skin. And I see another question about avocados, how many per day? You could eat as many avocados as you want per day, but there's around 5 grams in half an avocado. I think, well, the link
What is the
should be
serving size for an avocado? Is it a fourth of an avocado?
maybe.
I
I'm
think
honestly
so.
not sure.
So definitely watch serving sizes though.
We will also provide the links to all the articles. The chat will be available after the session ends, and the presentation slides will also be available.
Yeah. And I see another question, and no, cooking does not decrease the amount of fiber. Like I said, it's like if you're taking off the skin or that crunchy part, that could be decreasing your fiber.
I have a question about more so like muscle and fiber. So obviously we hear a lot about eating more protein to build muscle or maintain muscle mass. Is there anything that is related to fiber and like exercise or muscle?
I think I'm honestly not 100% sure, but I think often with muscle and like building endurance, when you have the fiber, like we said, it like makes you feel more satiated and it's more filling. So I think like eating fiber maybe before you exercise could be a good, or even after, could be a good way to recover. But I'm honestly not 100% sure if it has anything to do with like the muscle building aspect of it. I don't know if the other girls might know.
We have another question here.
Oh, do you?
Do you have any recommended health apps for tracking food?
I know online there's a website called Chronometer that you can enter your food in, and I think it will tell you your fiber intake. But you could also use your food label, like I just pointed out. It shows you how much fiber you're getting per serving, so that can also be really helpful.
I think, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, is it there such the app is it MyFitnessPal where you can track
Mhm.
food
Yeah, it'll
intake?
tell you all of the nutrients, macros, and fiber.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, Chrometer is great. There's another one on there. Oh, Chrometer. Sorry. I've heard of that one before too.
Yeah. Pretty much any tracking app that you use for calories will also track your fiber.
Caroline, is there any way you can go back to the slide that talks about how much fiber for different age groups?
Yes, let me see if I can go backwards.
Got that other comment that I know you had a slide at the very beginning.
This one or
Yes, that's perfect.
okay.
Yes, so for men and women, somebody had asked the fiber needs for different age groups.
Yeah, this would be fiber for different age groups.
So for men. All right. Well, we don't really have a specific app for tracking. There's so many out there. I just know of MyFitnessPal because I have a couple people that I know use it, but I don't know if there's the best one, but they all seem to be pretty tracking your macros.
If you're not looking for a specific app, or if you're really just looking to track fiber and you don't care about calories or any other macros, ChatGPT might be also a good option.
Oh.
Just putting everything in there and it'll tell you how many grams you've eaten for the day.
Build ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for
I see another
your
question. How do
presentation.
you
Oh.
know how much soluble versus insoluble fiber to have in one day? It's not necessarily how much of one or the other, because most fibrous foods have both. So when you're eating both, that contributes to your total fiber intake for the entire day. So it doesn't matter as much of soluble or insoluble, but as long as you're eating fiber, you'll be getting both, which will be a good balance for you. Okay. Do you have any